Good morning, I'm James Haken, the MC for eTourism Conference New Zealand 2012. I'm delighted to be in Auckland today, in fact at the New Zealand Tourism Research Institute at AUT University. I'm very happy to be joined by Carolyn Deuchar, who's going to be talking to me a little bit about what she's planning for her workshop, and also perhaps a little bit around what Simon Milne, who also works here at NZTRI, will be talking about at his keynote. But I suppose before we get going, it's really important that we understand a little bit about Carolyn's background, what it is she does here at NZTRI, and I suppose a little bit about what NZTRI does. And of course, all of that in 10 minutes, because we're really trying to keep you engaged for all of these 10 minutes. So, welcome Carolyn.
Hello James, and thanks for visiting us here today at NZTRI. I'll start as you requested just by talking a little bit about myself and my background, because I'm not really what you'd call a pure academic. My sort of time in the tourism industry, I guess now would be spanning sort of 20 to 25 years since first arriving in the industry some years ago, and then now more recently working as a tourism researcher. For many years I worked in the aviation sector. I worked for Singapore Airlines and worked for them for nearly 10 years, and for other airlines in Auckland, and then went to Europe for a few years on the OE and came back and worked for Tourism Auckland in their visitor centres in AOTS Square, down by Britomart, out at the airport. And this gave me a really good insight into the way that technologies were being used by the tourism and aviation sectors. And I also sort of in between there sometime I went off and got into the world of the academic by doing a master's degree in computing. So the marriage of tourism and technology is really something that for me is based on an academic understanding, but more so of really understanding how the industry works and the importance of our distribution channels. But more recently, it's really how we're using technology and the internet as a social machine that captures my interest. The New Zealand Tourism Research Institute, we've been here for 10 years. I joined the Institute 7 years ago and worked very closely with Simon Milne and the team here. And really we have a very solid eye on how tourism can be used as a tool to stimulate local economies and very much to enhance livelihoods of those within our communities. And we know that tourism businesses, we know the nature of the tourism businesses in New Zealand is characterised by very small enterprise, much of the time with perhaps less than 5 full-time equivalent employees, and that those tourism enterprises are very strongly embedded in community. So we see the link between business and community, they go hand in hand.
That's great, thank you very much Carolyn, and I also know that congratulations is in order. You've had really big few years, which has led to big announcement in the last few days. You must be very proud.
Oh, thank you James, and for me you'll see that I've slapped on the front of the eTourism website a photo of me in my little academic garb, and one of the things around that is that I really believe the tourism industry, perhaps for me or my experience of it, has not been something that is connected well often to the academic world and the world of the university. And really what we're seeing internationally, and there's a strong hope here, is that we will see universities, public agencies, private enterprise and communities working hand in hand to support and enhance the work of each other and not just pick holes in it.
You must of course make sure that everyone's aware it's because you finished your PhD, so big amount of work that went in there. So yeah, no, it's a big congratulations from everyone. I'm sure the listeners are very excited for you, and it's really great to have you along at the eTourism conference. I suppose now we know a little bit about you and what the Tourism Research Institute does. Maybe if you can tell us a little bit about what people coming to the conference and coming along to your workshop in particular are really going to be able to take away from your workshop, and what you hope people go away thinking, and I suppose without giving too much away, but just enough to give people a taste of what to expect.
Okay, now I'll try and be brief. We hear time and time again the mantra of tourism businesses must work together, we must be working together, we must be collaborating, we must have a stronger sense of cohesion. But what really sort of took my attention, and especially in my PhD work, was nobody really explains how that happens, and we don't really have some very good processes and practical ideas of how that can happen. So we're going to be presenting some things to you based on our experiences in New Zealand and elsewhere on actually how collaboration can work, how it does work, what are some of the things that affect it, and how technology and community can be integrated in that. So it's actually a how-to. How do you get local content? How do you get small tourism enterprises working together in the capture of that local content, local stories, and that sort of business networking and community engagement, integrating ICT in that process.
That's great, and obviously I think we're actually very close to the venue this year, just not too far away at all here in Auckland at the moment. And I suppose from your perspective, what are you hoping to get out of the eTourism conference? Are you yeah, obviously we're all going to speak, but it's also for even as speakers we like to take things away and build relationships. So what are you hoping to get out of the experience?
The word you just said, I just hope people are coming away with a broader understanding of the way that we can use IT and the internet as a way to develop the industry sustainably, socially, culturally, environmentally and economically, and a little bit of a movement from this common how do we market social media, what I call, rah-rah fest, to something where we're really beginning to look at these issues around the needs of the industry and how we can be using those technologies to help us build relationships and how we can support visitors to build relationships with our destinations.
That's great. And obviously you work very closely with Simon, and I am hoping to deliver one of these podcast with Simon in a couple of weeks' time when back up here again, but it'd be really great to maybe just kind of link how I know that yours and Simon's presentations will link together somewhat. Maybe it would be really great just to tell us a little bit about what Simon Milne, that's Professor Simon Milne, also from the NZTRI at AUT University, will be talking about a little bit as well.
Simon is going to share with the audience some case studies, examples of good practice from his work internationally in New Zealand and across the South and Central Pacific. And I guess what I'm going to then be doing is really, I guess because I have that industry understanding, it's really how does this work? What can we do in a day to take this broader, more macro understanding of something and getting it to a stage where we can implement it into tasks, activities, projects, etc. That for me is how does it happen?
And that's one of the big mantras to the conference this year, is about for small, medium-sized businesses and for the micro businesses that you've already mentioned, these people can come along to the conference and get actual ideas and tangible things they can take away and do, rather than just fill their heads with concepts that doesn't necessarily allow them to go away and act. So I think that we're not too far away now, but one of the other things that I did really want to discuss a little bit, I suppose, is just around, you obviously did talk about how you quite often associate the social media angles, the way that we use it in terms of promotion. It can always be about advertising and push forward, and those people who are listening who know how I feel about this, it's very much about relationships and communication and so on. And I really wanted to kind of make that point that Carolyn and I actually met through Twitter, and I just think in terms of connecting people, it's a really great opportunity from, yes, we're both in New Zealand, but Carolyn was here in Auckland, I've been based in Dunedin, and it's been a very great way to be able to get to know people who you have similar experiences and things to share. And yeah, it's been really great to have met you through Twitter. I suppose in terms of your use of social media, I really wanted to clarify that you're obviously not against social media in any way. It's really just a case of how it's used and how it can be used.
For me, as I said, the internet is a social machine, and our use of it is around creating our personal, our private, our passionate and our learning networks. So Twitter for me has been, really a combination of all of those things, and I think this allows us to, for me, I think Facebook for me is, where you know your friends. Twitter is where you make them, and those really the relationships that allow us to advance what we do in a day.
That's really great. And I suppose whilst on Twitter, it'd be worthwhile telling people that the official eTourism, the official eTourism account is at eTourismNZ, and throughout the run-up to and throughout, we'll be using hashtag eTourismNZ to build the conversation more and more. On that note, we are going to have to call it a day. I do look forward to having you back next week, and in the meantime, if you haven't registered, be sure to go online to www.etourismnz.com. Make sure you get your tickets, because we are speedily filling up and there is a limited space. Otherwise, we of course are looking forward to seeing all of you that have registered. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen, and again, speak to you or look forward to being able to present with someone else next week. Thank you.